And welcome into the Monday edition. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you. Hope everybody is off to a marvelous start to their Monday morning here in Nashville, Tennessee. We got lots to dive into today. The Tennessee Titans fall again to the Indianapolis Colts. We got a lot to say on that front today on the program. We'll go ahead and take your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Tennessee survives a scare, and that's maybe putting it lightly, with the Florida Gators over the weekend to get to 5-1, setting up a game that, quite frankly, I have no idea what to think about with Tennessee and Alabama coming up next weekend. We'll get into that a little bit later in the program. And Vanderbilt keeps it going, baby. Taking down the Wildcats. They build on the Alabama win. And Vanderbilt playing some really good football right now. We'll get into all that throughout the show today. Paul Kuharski will be with us at 7:30. Cory Curtis will be with us at 8 o'clock. Joe Rexrode, good morning. How we doing?
We're doing okay. I'm in parts unknown. I'm in witness protection to see if I'm trying to not have to watch any more Tennessee Titans football. So I've decided to go into hiding to see if that will help, because it's hard. It is hard to watch this team.
It is very hard to watch this team. There's no doubt about that. Keyser, good morning. What's going on? How we doing?
Good morning. Yeah, doing well. Can't complain. Had a nice weekend and got to do a little bit of early Halloween celebration with some friends.
Wow.
But yeah, having a grand old time this Monday morning.
Well, let's get into it. Indianapolis wins 20-17 yesterday, and kind of what was surprising to most people, I think a little bit later into the morning, it came out that Joe Flacco was going to be the starter for the Colts. So Anthony Richardson participated in practice last week, was a full participant in practice toward the end of the week, and it felt like he was going to be getting the start, and it was going to be Anthony Richardson versus Will Levis, and that was not the case. Joe Flacco gets the start for the Colts yesterday, immediately drives the Colts down the field, and they score a touchdown on their opening drive. But really, the Colts didn't do that much offensively, just purely by the numbers. They ran for 80 yards, only had 2.9 yards per carry with no Jonathan Taylor in the game. Flacco finished 22 of 38 for 189 yards with 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. But that was enough to get the win against the Tennessee Titans. The Titans, once again, Joe, finished with 17 points, which seems to be the magic number when Will Levis is in at quarterback and they don't have Tyler Huntley quarterbacking the opposition. 17 points yet again for the Tennessee Titans. And against one of the worst defenses in the NFL, Titans ran the ball fine. 28 carries, 146 yards, 5.2 a carry. They threw the ball for 95 yards a week after Trevor Lawrence lit up the Indianapolis Colts for 371 yards through the air. The Titans mustered up a magical 95 yards throwing the football yesterday. Just beautiful football to watch from the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, it was nasty. It was nasty, and I actually thought the offensive line was. I think that we're seeing progress with the offensive line. Like you said, certainly in terms of run blocking, but even in pass protection, I did not feel like it was like earlier in the season where, it's just, you basically, it's a pass play and you just throw caution to the wind, and, you're going to have to at least dodge one rusher before you look downfield. They're getting better, although I don't know that Leroy Watson is the answer right tackle, but, they're trying to find solutions over there. He had, I think, 3 penalties yesterday, but it wasn't a disaster up front, right? The disaster is just having any ability to either get people open, hit people when they're open, catch the ball when you're open and they hit you, and just anything functional with this passing game. It's just it's hard to figure. Obviously I know we're going to get into Ridley for sure, but Tyler Boyd finally makes an appearance late in the game, but it's like, where's that all game, right? I will say that the best thing that happened with this offense was, that they set up that NWI touchdown. Like, that was good play calling that leads to the NWI touchdown, because you're screening him to death, and they're like, there's no way 15 is going to, he's blocking on this play. He hasn't been targeted once this year. There's a touchdown.
Yep.
But after that, it's just like, they just had no answers. And I think look, I think the biggest problem is the quarterback. It's got to be. He's not the only problem, but it's got to be him as the biggest problem.
Yeah, it's bad. We're going to get more specifically into him. I said it last week. I'm close to being out on Will Levis, and yesterday was probably it for me. I'm out. So it's not good enough. The fact that that's your offensive output when you're coming out of the bye week and you've had some chances to work on some things, self-scout, and quite frankly, when you're going up against one of the worst defenses in the NFL, which make no mistake about it, that's what the Colts are. They are one of the worst defenses in the NFL, both on the ground game, which the Titans did exploit yesterday, and through the air, which the Titans did not exploit yesterday. For that to be the offensive output and you not reach 100 yards passing in an NFL game is not acceptable yesterday. It's just not acceptable. And look, I know, Levis talked about the interception yesterday, and they started talking about this on the broadcast too. Like maybe his shoulder isn't healthy enough to really deliver that ball down the field. Well, if that's the case, he shouldn't have played. Will Levis, I don't know that Will Levis is good enough when completely healthy to win you football games, much less when he's not. So if
Right.
he's not healthy enough to push the ball down the field, then that's 100% on coaching, and that's coaching malpractice to put him out there yesterday. So quite frankly, when they started talking about, and he got up there in the post-game press conference, and he started talking about, well, if I was completely healthy, I'd probably have a little bit more zip on the ball, but felt like I was healthy enough to win. Well, I don't know that you're healthy enough to win when you're completely healthy, much less when you're not. So don't give me that crap. I thought that was absurd in the post-game press conference yesterday.
Yeah, no, look, if he can't make that throw, he shouldn't play. Also, the issue with that, the issue with that throw, as pointed out by Adam Archuleta on the broadcast, is that he patted the ball, and then he's open. Now I'm going to throw it. He was way late with the throw. Maybe he has more like that lateness. I don't care if you have more zip on it. You're at least getting it broken up, right? If you wait that long, so it was upstairs that was the issue there. But I'm with you. If it's really to the point where, because the game plan certainly had very little pushing the ball down the field in it. If that was a result of, well, Will's shoulder is just not quite there, let's not do that, then yeah, just go. That's a fine enough reason to go with the other QB if you actually can't function as a quarterback as a starter. And I'll tell you, Robbie, I hear you on coaching malpractice, and it may be that simple. There's also this, look, it is the Will Levis year, right? And I'm just saying, organizationally, is there pressure that, well, he's just got to start no matter what? I don't know that, but I'm just saying we've seen weird stuff from ownership here.
We have
in the last couple of years. There's
no doubt. And whatever the case is, 16 to 27 for 95 yards, a touchdown and a pick yesterday, quarterback rating of 63. It's just not good enough. And again, you have to factor in who you're playing too. Like Trevor Lawrence the week before looked like an all-pro against this team. And go look at what Trevor Lawrence has done in basically every other game, right? It's not been very good from Trevor Lawrence in that offense. That's the defense that you were playing yesterday. Indy's terrible. Indy's got an awful defense. And look, you caught a bad break because I do believe, if Anthony Richardson plays, then you've got a better chance to win yesterday. And look, Flacco didn't do anything special yesterday. He threw the pick. He probably could have thrown a couple more. He threw for $189. There were a couple of plays where the defense let him down, right? Like Josh Downs had a big day yesterday, 7 catches, 66 yards, had the touchdown. I'm sure we'll get into L'Jarius Sneed at some point today. It certainly was not a perfect day from the defense. But the bottom line is they gave up 20 points. You were taking on a defense that's awful. And yet again, we're sitting here talking about 17 points being the output that you were able to put up on the scoreboard yesterday. And at some point, it's just like beating your head against the wall. That's what it feels like watching this Titans offense. And, Joe, that was such a big game. We've talked about this from a scheduling standpoint. You really needed to have that one yesterday. And I know, Detroit just suffered a really big loss with Aiden Hutchinson, which was gross to watch yesterday. But they're still pretty darn good. They hang up 47 points yesterday against Dallas. You got Buffalo coming up. 1-6 feels like an inevitability at this point. It's the National Football League, and I get it. Weird things happen. But, it feels like you're staring 1-6 right in the face right now with this loss in a game that you just really needed to have at home yesterday. I just thought it's hard for me to overstate the disappointment coming out of that loss yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it's 1-6 seems like it's an inevitability. Like you said, we've seen crazier things than this team beating one of those teams on the road. Excuse me, but 1-6 seems like an inevitability. And at that, look, we've been fighting off the draft talk. We're not going to get. We're not going to get out of November. We're not going to get out of November. I got the text line already talking about who do we take with the top 3 pick. So it's just it's rough, man. And I just that we'll get to all of it, but Ridley and also then Snead. I mean, L'Jarius Snead. You talk about some of your big acquisitions just completely not coming up with plays. And look, I don't think L'Jarius Snead is a bad corner after yesterday. I mean, good corners get beat, but the bottom line is he did. He got the PI, he gave up the TD, then he gave up the key first down to keep it going. He got beat by pretty good receivers, not like top of the line NFL receivers. So just you can go up and down this team. I mean, we'll talk mostly about Levis today, and that's and the offense, which is awful, but like all up and down this team, that defense has a real knack for failing in key moments as well.
Well, and special teams continuing to give up big returns or, lining up in an illegal formation and, on the kick return, which is just amazing. Like it continues to be problems there. And look, I am by no means am I making an excuse for the Titans, because to me, that's an inexcusable loss that they had yesterday based on the circumstances and what you had, potentially at your disposal offensively. I thought the officiating was atrocious in that game. And I thought it was awful. The missed call on DeAndre Hopkins on that third down for pass interference is just totally inexcusable. I mean, the referee is standing right there looking at it.
I mean, that's one of those 99 out of 100. How did the one time out of 100 happen? How do you not call that?
Yeah, it's just unbelievable to me that's a missed call in a National Football League game. Your officials can't do better than that. Again, the Titans had plenty of opportunities to go win that game besides that, but I just thought that was atrocious yesterday. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. We're off and running. Titans fall 20-17 to the Indianapolis Colts yesterday, and I'm out on Will Levis. We'll get a little bit more into that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 Yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you. Titans lose 20-17 to the Indianapolis Colts yesterday. Will Levis finishing 16 of 27 for just 95 yards. That is 3.5 yards per pass yesterday against the Colts. Taking your thoughts on that, 615-737-1025. Joe, I'm out. I've seen enough from Will Levis, and I'm not saying that they need to bench him because, quite frankly, I don't really know what that's going to do for you at this point. Like, maybe you end up, instead of drafting 3rd overall, you're drafting 8th overall at that point. But you're 1-4. I think the more he plays, and this is just me, you may disagree with it, and that's fine. But the more he plays, the more I'm convinced that the Atlanta and Miami games that we keep coming back to last year are just complete outliers. That's the more I watch him play, the more I'm convinced that's what it is. And we're going to have, the detailed conversation, continuing about him and what's happening and why has it gone wrong and why does it look like he's regressing from where he was last year, and all those things I think are fair conversation on the table. But to me, I have lost all hope that he is going to ever turn into a legitimate franchise quarterback, which is the goal. Can he be a spot starter in the NFL if you're in a pinch at some point? Maybe. Could he improve from where he is now to where maybe he'll be in a year or two from now? Certainly. That's possible. We see it throughout the league. I'm out. I've lost all hope that he is going to be a franchise quarterback for the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to sit here and, by the way, is my voice coming through milky and smooth now?
Sounds great.
Is it better? Beautiful. That's my fault. That was a equipment malfunction on my part last segment. I apologize. And I can't sit here and I'm not going to sit here and argue with you. I mean, I would not. Everything you just said, there's not one thing you said where I'm like, whoa, pump the brakes, buddy. I mean, it looks bad. It looks bad in terms of seeing the field, making decisions, being accurate enough. He did slide yesterday.
He did.
He slid well.
I was shocked.
So he's worked on some stuff. Unfortunately, he also just absolutely annihilated the ball boy.
Yeah, that was not good.
Hope that guy is recovering well. They reported on the broadcast that he's had to have surgery. That's brutal. But look, I can't argue with you. I think you're going. That's going to end up being right. I would continue to play him, just because. In this league, way crazier things have happened than a guy who looks like Will Levis right now at quarterback becoming a good quarterback. Crazier things have happened. Again, I'm trying to think of who would be, maybe a guy like I was certain that not certain that Sam Darnold, not Sharton, certain that Sam Darnold, Sharton for Darton. That Sam Darnold was just awful, just an awful player. Just like, this guy just has no clue. And you look at him now. So could that happen at some point for Will Levis? Sure. But at this point, he doesn't appear equipped to get this done. And again, the whole thing it's a bad situation.
It is.
That's where you get into dicing up, okay, so what all has gone into this? But I do think that the biggest thing is that he prepares and he knows what he's doing and he knows what he's talking about and he can talk through everything and he's got all the physical tools, and then he just on game day, it's just not there. And I think you're probably right that, those performances last year are going to end up being outliers for him. And the reality is more what we're seeing now.
Let's go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Adam in Portland. Adam, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, morning, Robbie, man. Yeah, in a hotel in Atlanta, dude. I watched the Falcons and Panthers yesterday, and the whole time I'm thinking both these teams would smoke us. Like, they really would. As bad as it's just ridiculous to me, dude. He can't pass for 100 yards against a defense that made Trevor Lawrence look like Tom Brady. It really makes me sick. Dude, can we stop with this quarterback guru crap? Like, that dude. He quarterbacked Peyton Manning after he already had a Hall of Fame career. He quarterbacked Matt Stafford after he'd already had a Hall of Fame career. Like, get out of here with that, dude. Joe Burrow didn't need him. Like, you finally get a chance to work with a quarterback who needs a good quarterback coach, and he sucks. He can't pass for 100 yards. He's clearly digressed. So what are we even doing here, dude? Why is he not in consideration to be fired? I hate to do that 5 games into his coaching career, but I don't think he's the dude, man. I don't think the quarterback's the dude. I don't think the coach is the dude. But if you're supposed to be a quarterback guru, I don't want to continue on with you either because you did nothing for him. That's where I'm at, dude.
Thanks for calling, Adam. Well, look.
Hey, we're firing Brian Callahan before 6:30. I love it.
We are. I said this yesterday. Will Levis to me is the biggest piece of this because he's just been horrible. I mean, there's no other way to slice it. I try not to be a person that overreacts and hot takes things. I do my best not to do that. Sometimes I fail. But when he threw that interception again yesterday, I just tweeted. I was like, Will Levis is absolutely terrible. Like, he's terrible. And right now, that's what he is. Can that change? Sure. We'll see what happens. But right now, he's a terrible quarterback. So that's problem number one with the Tennessee Titans. I will say, though, Joe, it has not been impressive on the Brian Callahan front to this point. And the idea of firing him, I'm not close to that. I mean, it's year one as a head coach. There's really nothing outside of like scandal off the field that could happen with Brian Callahan this year for me to actually consider firing him after 1 year. But the early returns are not good. Like I said it yesterday on Twitter, like you're paying him to have some answers. And right now, it just doesn't really look like he's got answers. And that to me is concerning as they move forward here. We're going to get into the Ridley stuff here in just a few minutes because, man, did he have some comments after the game yesterday. But for whatever reason, whether that's if you want to blame it 100% on Levis, you can do that. If you want to blame it on Ridley, that's fine. I blame some of it on the coaching staff too. Like they cannot get Ridley involved for whatever reason. They can't get him the football. It's 3 games in a row now where it's just been a total non-factor from Calvin Ridley on the offensive side of things. It has not been a very impressive start for Brian Callahan to this point.
I agree. Now, I will say that if you are certain that Levis is terrible, to me, there's a little bit of a sliding scale here. I agree with you. Like, you can't put it all like there's got to be some blame on the coaching staff, but I do think there's a little bit of a sliding scale, right? So if you think Levis is terrible, then I think you have to give a little bit of a break to the coaches,
I would
Callahan,
agree.
right? So, it's sort of like, I don't know what I can do with this, but certainly you're right. He's paid to have answers, just like Adam in Portland said. I mean, he's the QB guy, and he's talked about how excited he is about Levis, and he's come in here, and everybody's like, "What are we looking at?" So it's fair, yeah. The whole firing thing is just it doesn't need to be uttered anymore this year. I'm sure it will, especially if they keep losing. That's just not a realistic. I mean, unless you again, that would be Amy Adams Strunk saying, "Hi, everybody, I'm the worst owner in sports." I mean, that's seriously like that's
it would be
you
completely
would be
moronic. Yes.
Yeah, that you're not doing that, but I do. I think that's a bit of a sliding scale. If you still think there's something there and they're not getting the best out of Levis, well, then it's more on the coaches. I tend to drift more toward the guy just going out there on Sundays and just doing things in games that the coaching staff didn't expect him to do, or not doing things they do expect him to do in terms of seeing the field and making plays.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Titans lose 20-17 to the Indianapolis Colts yesterday. And one Titans player sounding off in the media after the game. We'll get into that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game. Nashville's best deal this week is Staley's Chicago Italian Dining right here in Nashville. Winners of numerous Best of awards. This is truly one of the best kept secrets in Nashville. Staley's Chicago Italian Dining brings amazing Italian food to the South, including original Italian beef sandwiches, Vienna Chicago-style hot dogs, and the best gyros south of Chicago. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals to get half off a $20 gift card while supplies last. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. Titans fall 20-17 yesterday. Hey, Joe, Calvin Ridley finishing with 0 catches for 0 yards on 8 targets yesterday, which when you really think about it in the National Football League, that's hard to pull off. It's hard to pull off having 8 targets thrown your way and to not come up with any of them is pretty difficult to accomplish in an NFL game, which means the last 3 weeks of production for Calvin Ridley in the passing game are this. 1 catch for 9 yards against the Packers, 1 catch for 5 yards against Miami, 0 catches for 0 yards against the Colts. In the last 3 weeks, he's got 2 catches for 14 yards. And then yesterday, 8 targets, 0 catches, 0 yards. And Calvin Ridley was asked about that after the game yesterday, and the answer was quite interesting. Here's what Calvin Ridley had to say in the postgame yesterday.
I had targets in what part of the game I had targets?
Fourth quarter, a lot of them.
All right, then. So I need some in the beginning of the too. Then like crazy for me. So I'm just, it is what it is. I suck today. I got to be better. But I got to get the ball a little early in the game so I can be in the game and here with the team so I can play well also.
So that's Calvin Ridley after the game yesterday talking about, when I get those targets. I was in the fourth quarter. And then went on a profanity-laced tirade about how he needs to get the ball earlier in the game and have the ball thrown his way. What do you make of this Calvin Ridley situation right now, Joe? Obviously, this is a problem. I mean, 8 targets and no catches yesterday is ridiculous. I mean, some of that you can put on Brian Callahan if you want to. Some of that's on Levis for sure. Some of that's on him. Like when the ball is thrown your way, it'd be nice to catch it every now and then. What do you make of what's going on with Calvin Ridley right now and just the inability to get him involved in this offense?
Yeah, well, did they not do a good enough job of getting it to him early? Did they force trying to get it to him late? I don't know. I mean, I've never heard of 8 targets and no catches in the NFL. I've just never heard of it. I'm sure it's happened. It's like your Green Bay Packers, like Don Hudson with a T in like 1947. Maybe that happened with the huge oblong pigskin ball,
Don would have caught the ball.
Yeah, but maybe just bad passes. I don't know. As I look at yesterday, I will say there's 1 target. And actually, I think it was probably Levis's best pass on that in cut in the fourth quarter where at first I thought it was a fumble, but, it's perfect pass, both hands. And, 2 defenders are closing and they hit him and they're able to knock the ball out of there. It's like you got to secure that. And like that was a big play that they needed to make and that he needed to make. And he didn't make. That's just straight up on him. We've talked about the pick where like that's just totally on Levis for waiting and okay, now I'll throw it. And yeah, again, if the shoulder's a factor there, then that's another issue. But I will, again, I'm going to go back to the only thing that they did yesterday offensively that I liked was they started out with the screen game stuff that set up a touchdown that Levis could have punted to NWI, right? So I mean, I guess you could have made Ridley the recipient of one of those screens, which would have been fine. I mean, why not? I mean, to me, they finally gave him a little end around, right? To finally like get him the ball. I think that was like in the second quarter.
Yeah, and he picked up like 7 yards or whatever it was.
Right. So they were already thinking like, okay, get him the ball somehow. But other than that, like, again, the early stuff, that was good. That was a good setup to get yourself a red zone touchdown. But I can't sit here and tell you his route running, how many times is he open? Quarterbacks miss open guys plenty. I mean, I think you probably would trace this most to just Levis, not being able to make some of the throws or see him fast enough or whatever it is. But also, it just does not speak well of Ridley either. I mean, you've got to, again, when you have an opportunity for like that play I mentioned, you have to make that play. So now you have this losing team, and that's when stuff like this really starts to flare up, when individuals, are also not living up to their contract or not getting opportunities, or they feel they're not getting opportunities, and you're losing. That's when things can get kind of corrosive.
Well, and it started yesterday, right? I mean, when you're kind of blowing up in the locker room with the media after the game and you're 5 games into the season, it's not good. Now, clearly there's a problem on offense. And to me, I mean, it starts with the quarterback. I mean, the quarterback's just not very good. And I don't know how much you can really accomplish at that point if your quarterback's going to play as poorly as Will Levis has played to this point. But, this has been a problem. We talk all the time on this show, Joe, about like training camp and what translates and what doesn't. Well, this one goes back to camp. Like they have, for whatever reason, Levis and Ridley have not been able to get on the same page. They just haven't been able to do it. And I don't know how much of it is just simply that, Levis is not very good and he can't get the ball where it needs to be. But you brought up a good example yesterday. That's an example of Levis throwing the ball where it needs to be thrown, and hitting Ridley in both hands and him just not being able to come up with it. For whatever reason, they have just not been able to figure this out. And look, we've seen Calvin Ridley play good football in the NFL, right? Like he was a really good player for Atlanta before all the gambling stuff happened. Last year in Jacksonville, it wasn't perfect, but he ended up with 76 catches for over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns last year on a team that wasn't very good. Like he's been a productive guy his entire career. And right now, just think about this. And it's obviously was highlighted yesterday. He has 27 targets on the season, which first off is not enough, but he's got 27 targets on the season. He's got 9 catches, which means that is an unacceptable failure rate in terms of the target to catch ratio with Calvin Ridley. And you can blame all that on Levis if you want to, but that's bad. I mean, they got to get that part figured out soon.
Per my math, that means he's caught a third of the passes that have been, and that's a very bad number. So no, it's bad. And again, it has been the talk all through camp. So, I mean, some of it absolutely goes on Levis, but some of it has to go on Ridley, and some of it goes on the coaches, and all the way around. You go back to the acquisition of Ridley. It's kind of the way that Rand Carthon described it, it sounds like losing some guys, probably like Alshire and Autry, opened up money and they said, okay, well, let's try this. I mean, I don't hate the idea. In theory, I think they needed to do something like that, right? And I still think Calvin Ridley is a very talented receiver who's good enough to be a number 1 receiver on a team, not one of the top ones, but I think he's good enough for that. But maybe, I there's got to be there's obviously some disconnect. I can't absolve him completely of it either, right? Like it's just weird how we're talking now. It's really a couple months and running of, gosh, are they ever going to get on the same page? And I can't precisely split up that pie of responsibility, but Ridley has to have some of it. There's no doubt. Ridley's got to have some of it, and he's had too many drops this year. I mean, even the Miami game where he had 1 catch for 5 yards or whatever it was. I mean, he runs like a simple out route. Rudolph hits him in stride, and he just drops the ball. Like there have been too many drops from Ridley this year too. But this is part of me going back to the coaching staff too. Like some of this is on Brian Callahan. Like you got to find a way to get your best players the football and to get them in positions to succeed. And 27 targets, 9 catches isn't good enough. And maybe it is as simple. And this is where I would start. Like if I am dividing up a blame pie, Levis is where I'm going to put the majority of it, because I just think Levis right now is a horrible quarterback. But Brian Callahan has got to figure out an answer to this. And we've gotten a couple of different text messages to this effect today that's basically saying, I'm out on Levis, but I am interested to see like how much of this is just Levis being awful and how much of this is Brian Callahan maybe in over his skis a little bit. And I don't know what the answer to that is, but right now, like it has not been impressive on the Brian Callahan front. And I have to put at least a little bit of the blame for Ridley not being able to get involved and not being able to get on the same page. Some of that has to go on the head coach and the play caller. Yeah. Well, no, absolutely. And again, when you have the play calling head coach, you tend to put everything on the play calling head coach, which I understand. But remember, Brian Callahan got this job without being a play caller, right? And that's
Yes.
how it goes. Now these guys, they're OCs, but the head coach is calling the plays, and now the OC. I mean, I talked to Zach Taylor about Brian Callahan, and he told me all this stuff about how important he was and how critical he was to everything and how he basically set up the roadmap for him on Sundays. Well, Nick Holtz is that guy for Brian Callahan. So, we tend to not want to, I feel like offensive coordinators are overblamed. We've talked about that millions of times, right? Like it's the easiest job to nitpick because we all see exactly what you're doing with your job. So when you're not a play caller, I think sometimes people tend to not think of that person, but like he's the offensive coordinator still, and he's still during the week a huge part of all this. So I look at him too. That's a guy who has never been, just like Callahan's a rookie head coach, but Callahan to me has the path to here makes sense. Nick Holtz kind of has an elevation to this job. If you look at his career path, and I think he should be involved in that discussion as well.
Let's go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Larry to the program. Larry, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, good morning. Hey, I guess I'm wondering as a Titans fan, what's the holdup on going to the backup quarterback? I know it's not a great subject, but I don't want to keep watching. If the team's not interested in winning, I don't want to keep watching.
Yeah, I understand that. Thanks for the call, Larry. I mean, look, I don't dismiss that out of hand anymore, Joe. I mean, we've talked about that. I mean, obviously I don't. I'm out on Levis, so I don't dismiss that out of hand. I don't really know what you're gaining going to Rudolph. Like, is you going to be a playoff team now that Rudolph's your quarterback? Probably not. Also, you're 1-4 at this point. So, I'm kind of the mindset of if you're going to go down, then just go down with the ship and let Levis kind of guide you there. And then you'll see, we will get into that draft talk in November, and that'll be really fun times on the program.
Yay.
But, I do hear people when they start saying, losing the locker room and the team and all that, Ridley blowing up yesterday is not a great start. And the more losing that takes place here, Joe, the nastier it's probably going to get with some of these guys, especially, in the case of Ridley here, when you just cannot get the football for whatever reason.
Yeah. No, look, it's I totally understand anybody bring it up now. I mean, just because Levis it's been so bad, it's kind of like, okay, well, at what point have you seen enough? I mean, I will say that at some point, because here we are, Levis, we'd all put him at the top of the list, but there are other things you wonder about. At some point, it probably isn't a terrible idea for Brian Callahan, if this continues the way it is, to have Mason Rudolph in there, quarterback a game, and say, see, I actually can call plays and we have an offense that can function. I wouldn't do it the next two games because Mason Rudolph's not leading you to wins in those games either. So, but I think, you're probably getting closer to that point. And another thing this week is, I mean, like if it's going to be back to, he can't quite throw that deep ball. It's like, then you have to sit him. I mean, like if the game plan yesterday against, like you said earlier, Robby, a terrible defense was, well, we just can't throw it down the field. Well, then that's just dumb.
That's bad.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, if they approached that game yesterday knowing that Levis couldn't push the ball down the field and they decided to go with him anyway, that does not inspire confidence. Like, it's one thing if Patrick Mahomes is trying to play through an injury. I think you just kind of live with whatever he decides to do. Will Levis has not earned that. Will Levis and may not ever earn that. But, like, he's not good enough to do that. So, to me, if that's the way you approach the game yesterday, then that would give me some serious concerns about whoever made that call, whether it's Rand Carthon, whether it's the coaching staff with Brian Callahan. That's not good enough if that's the way they approach that game yesterday. We'll have more of your thoughts on the Titans coming up next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Titans fall to 1-4 after the loss to Indianapolis yesterday. More coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Tune in to 93.3 Totally Hits Nashville tomorrow night for MTSU football. Blue Raiders taking on Kennesaw State at Floyd Stadium. Pregame at 5:30, kickoff at 7 o'clock. MTSU football coverage on 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville, presented by Sloan's Motorcycle ATV. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. Titans fall to 1-4 yesterday, 2017 loss to their division rival, the Indianapolis Colts. Taking your thoughts all day long on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Let's go back to our phone line. Welcome in Chad in Hendersonville. Chad, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Good morning. Where do you start? Really is where I'm at. Is like where do you start in so many directions? I guess we could just pick one out of a hat, and so I will. Situational football, decision making down there at the end. I mean, what planet are you on, or how low is your football IQ to not go for it on fourth down there at near the end of the game? I mean, why are you are you waving the white flag? Because if you really believe that your defense is going to get a stop, then go for it on fourth down, and your defense will give a stop. They'll kick a field goal, and now you've got a minute and a half, 2 minutes to go down the field and at least have a shot. And then, talking situational football, your punt return. Never in the history of the game is putting 10 guys on the line and trying to rush the punter's just going to kick the ball as quick as if somebody sneaks through. Nobody's ever blocked a punt in that situation. You've got to set up some kind of return. You can still rush 8 guys and try to keep the kicker pressure on the punter, but you got to set up some kind of return. This idea of putting 10 guys on the line and then just watch the punt returner let the ball roll down to completely forfeit any chance you're going to have to even get a Hail Mary. So just situational low IQ football has me concerned. And finally, if you're going to play this quarterback, you've got to feed him with confidence. I mean, we all know sports is all about confidence. And I don't even know what's going on there. So to me, it's just pulling stuff out of a hat. Your thoughts?
Yep. Thanks for the call, Chad. Appreciate it. I mean, look, the special teams part of this, they're in a bad spot either way, Joe, with that last fourth down. You're on your side of the field. If you go for it and you miss it, the game is essentially over with at that point. And all Indy's got to do is kick a field goal, and then you've got to go back down the other way and score a touchdown. So I don't have a huge problem with the decision to punt there, but you got to come up with a stop, right? Indy's able to convert a first down the next drive, and that basically takes all the time off the clock after that. So you got to come up with a stop in that situation. And then as far as the confidence is concerned, I understand the thought process there. You got to get your quarterback feeling confident. But at some point, the quarterback, it's on the quarterback to get himself feeling confident, right? You got to make the right plays, make the right throws. And I don't know that he's got the ability to do that with any sort of consistency after 5 games of this.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree. To support the caller on that decision to punt, the analytics, the probability strongly supported going.
Yeah,
there.
I wouldn't have had any problem with them going for it. I'm just saying you need to stop if you don't in that situation.
For sure. Yeah. To me, it was 50-50. The defense had, given up 20 points. Your defense is still by far your best performing unit. You gain the yardage from the punt, and you hope you can get it back, and then of course you don't get the stop. So that's the defense. Again, this defense overall, the numbers are good, but the lack of clutchness is pretty glaring at this point. You think back to the Jets game, for example. Hold them down all day, but then here you go, boom, boom, and you lose a game. And yesterday you really needed that defense through the Titans to step up, and they didn't do it. So, but I'm with the call. It really is a grab bag of issues here with this team.
Let's go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Keith in Bowling Green. Keith, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Good morning, guys. To me, Levis showed potential last year. I can't understand why. It seems like to me that the coaching staff is just trying to protect him, and it's hurting him. And I realize that, he's brought a lot of that on himself. And then the quarterback from Kansas City looked to me like I knew he had a hamstring issue 3 weeks ago. Looks to me like he's still, because he didn't have that speed yesterday. Anyway, I'll hang up and listen.
Yep. Thanks for the call, Keith. I mean, Snead did get torched a couple of times yesterday. Now they didn't, they overshot one. I think it was I can't remember if it was Downs or Pierce, the one they overthrew on that play, but it was not, from just the general sense of it, a couple of plays yesterday, Joe, Snead did get torched a few times, which was not encouraging to see.
Yeah. No, he did. He got beat in the key moments. The PI was the right call.
Yep.
Yeah, the TD and the first down are both situations where the cover, he's there. It's a
touchdown catch was a great play by Pittman. That's a heck of a catch.
Yeah, exactly. No, it absolutely was. So I mean, those like in general with him, I mean, it's disappointing without question that the guy, you traded for, you pay 76 over 4. And he's giving up those plays. That's disappointing. I still would not put him anywhere near the top of the list of issues. In fact, I'd say, I mean, who was good yesterday? Let's have a moment of positivity. Jarvis Brownlee's good.
Yep.
I like him. I definitely like him. I actually thought, the left side of the line in particular, Latham Skronski, they were pretty good.
Nick Folk looks great.
There you go. Stonehouse hanging in there.
NWI has got a 50% touchdown percentage in terms of his targets all year. So there's that too.
And 100% on catches, right? That's his right. 1 catch, 1 touchdown.
Yeah.
Am I right there?
You're correct.
Yeah. All right. So there you go. We've found the positives. But but with Snead, it's still like, man, that's where you hope those plays are made by your team now, because you finally went out and got a number 1 corner. And I mean, just so far this year, and the underlying numbers say it too, he has not been great.
Yeah. It's been certainly more to be desired there in terms of what you've paid him to be and what he was last year for Kansas City. He's not been that to this point. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll have more of your reaction to the Titans' loss to Indianapolis coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. Titans lose 20-17 to the Indianapolis Colts yesterday. They fall to 1-4 on the season. We'll be joined by Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com coming up at 7:30. Get PK's thoughts on all things Titans and where things go from here after the loss to Indianapolis. Cory Curtis will be with us at 8 o'clock from News 2, taking your thoughts. In the meantime, 615-737-1025. We will, here in just a few minutes, get into Tennessee's win against Florida in overtime over the weekend and Vanderbilt taking down Kentucky. We'll have a lot more on that tomorrow on the show as well, but we will get into that here in just a few minutes. Will Levis, not very good yesterday, 16 of 27. Now, we did hear in the update there, Callahan talked about how, other than the interception, he handled the game well, which I guess is fine, but you threw for 95 yards yesterday in an NFL football game against one of the worst defenses in the league. That's, to me, not very good, not very fine as it relates to the Titans offense and the passing game. I've said it earlier in the show. I'm out on Will Levis. Like a lot of Titans fans are out on Will Levis. You're 1-4 as a team right now, and then you got Buffalo and Detroit coming up with your next 2 games on the road. So the expectation is, they're going to be heavy underdogs in both of these games. I have not looked to see what the line is for next week. I imagine it's pretty significantly in the favor of Buffalo, and you could be staring right in the face of 1-6 coming up if you're the Tennessee Titans. And then it starts to get really interesting just in terms of how much does the negativity start to creep in. We talked about the Calvin Ridley comments after the game yesterday. How long does this continue to go on status quo before Brian Callahan is forced to make some changes? And again, I don't have much time for the, Brian Callahan firing conversation, which has been brought up a couple of times today on the program, either on the phone line or the text line. I will say, though, I do think there reaches a point, Joe, if this continues, where, if you're Brian Callahan, part of you wants to say, hey, let's get somebody else in at quarterback so I can prove that, hey, this ain't just me as a coach. I'm dealing with some limitations here at the quarterback position.
Yeah. You still would, then the question would be like, well, wait a minute. You were so excited about him. You had so many glowing things to say about him, and you're supposed to be a quarterback guy. So where's the disconnect? But yes, still agree to your point. At some point, a well quarterbacked game in this offense would be good. Mason Rudolph came in, the Miami game, and that was one of those games where the other side was so hapless that you really just didn't have to do much at all.
Right.
But yeah, I would think that Mason Rudolph could, I guess we may or may not see, we probably will see at some point, that Mason Rudolph could probably come in and operate this offense better and at least give you some kind of consistency and continuity. But look, I do think, just based on, we know the big one, in the second game, the holy bleep roller, that reaction. But I feel like you're seeing, and I thought you saw some yesterday too, increasing visible signs of frustration from Brian Callahan with Will Levis, which again, is understandable. If you're in the Levis camp, you might say, well, that you're supposed to be making me a great quarterback. And, there's a lot of things that should be on you too. And like you said, I think that's fair. We have to look at Callahan. But I think that at some point it probably does benefit him to have Mason Rudolph quarterback a couple of games. And then we need to see this offense look like an NFL offense and not a 17-point a game bleep show, which of course the Tennessee Titans fans are very sick of watching with different head coaches. Real quick, by the way, Robby, Vrabel's trending on Twitter.
Yeah.
I still call it Twitter. So from what I'm quick from what I'm gathering, first of all, lots of Titans fans say, Mitchell Vrabel with a terrible decision, but also it appears that the Eagles, Browns, Jags, and Ohio State fans all want him as their head coach right now. So that's just my quick search of Twitter. So yes, everyone shed a tear for Vrabes. You love him again.
Well, I did see some of that yesterday on the old twitter.com, I guess x.com, whatever it's called now, of the man, Titans sure made a mistake letting Mike Vrabel go. look, I didn't agree with the Mike Vrabel firing at the time. We talked about that a lot here on the show. It's still a little early to me to determine whether or not, the Brian Callahan part of this is a mistake. Now, I will say, and we talked about this too, like, look, I think to some degree, Levis and what he did last year gets a little over exaggerated. Like, it's not like he came in and lit the world on fire. Now, he did play great against Atlanta, and he had a very good fourth quarter against Miami. So there is that. And those two things are way better than anything we've seen from him so far this year. So if you're sitting here today and you're wondering, like, how is it that Levis showed more promise last year with a coaching staff that you fired at the end of the year because you didn't like where things were headed, and you brought in the offensive guru and this new system and this new scheme and the new coaching staff, and it's gotten, unquestionably worse. Like, it is unquestionably worse with Will Levis this year. Like, how do you explain that? And I don't know what the answer to that is, Joe. Like, I don't know if it's just as simple as there's more tape on Will Levis now, and defenses have figured out now how exactly they want to go about defending him. I don't know if he's just in over his head a little bit, or if he's in his head a little bit when it relates to the contract stuff that we talked about earlier in the season. I don't know what it is, but it is a fair question to ask of, like, how has it gotten this much worse with Will Levis in year 2 when you're hoping to see that leap?
Right. And this is where you do have to keep expectations in mind, because I would argue, yeah, you're right. You isolated the points of optimism, the Atlanta game and Miami game. But I would still argue that in a lot of the games last year, I didn't come away feeling like I've been feeling after the games this year. Of like, what is happening? Right now, again, rookie thrown into a bad situation. We all knew that. Expectations low. This year, full off season. The quarterback guru's here. New offense. Oh, it's going to be this Bengals offense throwing the ball all over the yard. So maybe the expectations and, the fact that now he knows he's the starter and he knows this is his opportunity, maybe that alters the way you view each performance a little bit. I think there's probably something to that, but I don't think, objectively, it has been bad. It has been a absolute failure so far.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And now as a team, your season is getting, I think it's done. I know that NFL players and NFL coaches come to that conclusion usually way after we do, but you're 1-4 and you've got Buffalo and Detroit coming up next. And if those two games go the way we think it's going to go, and the Titans lose, and maybe in at least one, maybe both cases, not overly competitive with the Bills and the Lions, I do wonder, like, how ugly does it start to get? Because we know this. When you're in professional sports and you're in a losing environment long enough, it starts to get a little rough. And, we've talked about this some too, Joe, but I wonder, like, if you're Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker and the decision makers right now for the Titans, do you have one eye on the trade deadline? Like, are you looking at your roster right now and seeing maybe what some future assets you could look like as it relates to, 1-3 after you get a win in Miami? Maybe it's a little early to talk about that. You lose that game yesterday, and if these next two go the way we think it's going to go, then I think you got to give a lot of consideration to that if you're the Titans.
Oh, without question. No, I think that you have to see what you can get, so you can get some draft capital, and just make it clear to everyone, and if you do that, then it gets interesting too. Like, okay, so then what are you doing at quarterback?
Right.
I mean, again, you can keep rolling with Levis and hope he gets better, or kind of fank it that way, or you can switch. But I'm with you. If these games, if there's not a surprising upset win in at least one of these games, you could argue maybe both, which I will guarantee isn't happening, by the way. Then I think that you have to really be out there looking to see who you can sell off. Meanwhile, with Brian Callahan, it's, he's going to have to bear, he's going to have to fight through this and keep a locker room together and all those things. Now, he has experience in terms of with Zach Taylor, year 1 with the Bengals, 2-14. They were bad for 2 years. They go 4-11-1 the next year. Now, of course, the next year is when they got Burrow. And so, but, early on, I can't imagine people were too thrilled with that outfit. Now, that was also a franchise that had been long suffering. So there was a little bit more of an expectation of it. But the thing is, Robby, this franchise, I mean, let's look at the whole picture since John Robinson was fired. I mean, that's what this franchise is. This is now one of the worst franchises / teams in the NFL, and it's been consistent across multiple coaching staffs and GMs.
No doubt. 615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll take a little Titans breather. Coming up next, we'll get into Tennessee's win against Florida. Vanderbilt taking down Kentucky over the weekend. Paul Kuharski will be with us at 7:30. We'll get his thoughts on the Titans. Cory Curtis coming up at 8 o'clock. All that ahead. Preds fans, don't miss this Wednesday night Smashville live show at Brewhouse South in Cool Springs at 6 o'clock. See your Pred star players up close and personal, and your chance to get autographs and pictures as well. That's Wednesday night at Brewhouse South in Cool Springs. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
as a football team, you're just trying to find a way to be +1 on the scoreboard. And if you can find a way to be a lot more than that, that's awesome. At no point since I've been here has it been anything other than all of us together, man. And, I just like our defense, their competitive makeup, but also their belief in, the other side of the football that they're going to go make a play. It's what a team's about. And, we haven't been perfect. We can be a lot better. That's a positive, though, that we got an opportunity to get better.
That's Josh Heupel over the weekend. Tennessee takes down Florida in overtime, 23-17, the final score. I got some tickets to give away to see the Preds take on the Edmonton Oilers at Bridgestone Arena coming up on Thursday night. Be caller number 5-615-737-1025. Caller 5 will win a pair of tickets to see the Preds take on Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers coming up at Bridgestone Arena on Thursday night. So, Joe, it was not pretty for Tennessee on Saturday against Florida. For the majority of that game, it looked like it was going to be one of those Tennessee-Florida matchups that we've seen what feels like 1,000 times over the last 20 years. Florida got up by 10 in the game, and it looked like Tennessee was on its way to just not doing anything offensively. They battle back in the second half. Now, Graham Mertz leaves the game with an injury. Tennessee forces an interception from DJ Lagway. They end up tying the game back up at 10. Florida ties the game late in the fourth quarter. The game goes to overtime, and Tennessee gets the stop on the first possession, and then Dylan Sampson runs it in. So, Joe, I guess the one positive you could point to on the offensive side of the football right now is Dylan Sampson continues to be pretty good and is a good player for Tennessee, and thank God he is, because right now everything else on the offensive side of the ball is in bad shape for the Tennessee Volunteers. I said this after the game, Joe. Tennessee hadn't beaten Florida very often in my lifetime, so I should probably feel pretty good every time that they do. I don't. I felt bad. I feel worse on this Monday after that game. It was not good from Tennessee, particularly on offense.
No, it's a bad offense. It's a bad offensive football team. And right now we've been talking about Levis this whole show. I mean, talk about a guy who, and this is much more explainable and excusable for a kid in his second year in college. But right now, Nico is a guy who's like, okay, is he open? Okay, he's open. Now I'm going to throw it. And it's not working. It's not good. The passing game is virtually non-existent. Sampson's fantastic, but the offensive line pass protection is rough too. And so the combination of just not a good offensive line with a quarterback who now understands that and is so quick to pull the ball down. I mean, this is 2 straight years of this offense, and everybody wanted to blame everything on Joe Milton. And I think now you're seeing, like, this looks very similar to me. Miss it. I mean, talk about, Nico had, who was wide open? Was that Thornton or Brazel? I don't know.
I think it was Thornton.
I mean, absolute gimme touchdown, and he sails it about 10 yards out of bounds. So he's missing gimme throws too. I mean, he's in his head right now. It's a bad offensive football team. It's a really good defensive football team, but now Keenan Peely gets hurt.
Yeah.
So
and it doesn't sound good on him, by the way. Heupel did not commit to what it was after the game, but basically went on like a 2-minute soliloquy about Keenan Peely and how much he means to the football team. And when you start seeing a coach do that, then probably not good news.
Right. So look, I still think their front seven can match up with most. And look, I think the defense did step up, and yes, the late touchdown Lagway, that was an incredible play by him.
Yep.
That's where your safety Will Brooks got, not quite where he needs to be, I think, on that play, but still, like, that was a great play by the quarterback. But the defense is fine. I don't know. I think you probably should just take any win against Florida, given the history. Yeah, but I can't blame you for not feeling excited about it. Also, like, I have no idea what to expect this Saturday. This is such a different game than I thought we would be talking about. This was supposed to be the game in college football, and instead it's 2 teams. Everybody's like, gosh, what's up with these teams?
Well, Alabama's defense doesn't look very good. Tennessee's offense looks bad. So that's an interesting matchup. I mean, I guess the general college football fan should be excited to watch Alabama's offense take on Tennessee's defense and what that looks like on Saturday. But, Alabama escaped barely against South Carolina over the weekend. I mean, you would have been talking about back-to-back losses to Vanderbilt and South Carolina at that point. I don't really care overly about the AP poll. I will say it is kind of mystifying to me how Tennessee slides, and they should slide. Make no mistake about it. They should slide after what we saw against Florida, and Alabama remains the same at number 7 after what we saw against South Carolina. I don't know how good either one of these teams are heading into this matchup.
Well, I'm mystified that Vanderbilt's not ranked.
I agree.
How the heck is Vanderbilt? Come on, voters, get out of here. I mean, it was cool to see Army ranked. I like that, but no, Vanderbilt should be ranked. Yeah, and no, I have no explanation for you on the Bama Tennessee thing, but at least they get to play this week.
Yeah, and we'll begin to find out one way or the other. It's still, I mean, look, you would certainly rather, if you're Tennessee, be dealing with all these problems after a win, right? Like, at least you got the win and you've kept yourself in the discussion. Because if you lose that game Saturday to Florida, I mean, it's done. I mean, you're not making the college football playoff at that point. So you're at least hanging around in the discussion, and I guess hoping that your offense suddenly begins to figure it out. Like Nico, I think, still clearly has a lot of ability, but right now he's in his head. He's missing throws you can't miss. The offensive line doesn't look very good. I still got a lot of questions about this receiving core. So that's going to set up a really, really fascinating game for them on Saturday against Alabama. Meanwhile, Vanderbilt, I worried a little bit heading into this question, Joe, or heading into this weekend, Joe, about, what could this be a trap game? Is there too much rat poison for Vanderbilt after they take down Alabama with the positivity around the program? And they went out and handled business against Kentucky on the road on Saturday night. Diego Pavia with some big plays in that game once again. Vanderbilt wins 20-13 against a really good Kentucky defense. Vanderbilt's now 4-2. And again, it still mystifies me how they lost to Georgia State this year and they were right there to win Missouri. I mean, we very well could be talking about a 6-0 Vanderbilt team right now, but right now they're playing some good football, and they did so again on Saturday night.
Diego Pavia, best quarterback in the state right now. I mean, like, clearly. They controlled the game start to finish, never trailed. Pavia, I'm pretty sure he tore ligaments and broke his leg at some point in this game. If you saw how his leg got pinned under him, how he ever played after that, I have no idea. He kept going to the tent. And at the end of the game, he's skipping around the field with his little sister. I'm like, what is happening? He's incredible. And, I made the Vols my lock to blow out Florida. So I deserve to be hammered for that. You also deserve to be hammered for continuing to pick against Vanderbilt with big point spreads. They're good, man. And here's the Ball State coming up here this week. 27-point favorites, by the way, which how many times do we see that with Vanderbilt against anybody? But then you got Texas coming in here. And
College game day?
It might be college game day. Now, as Mitch Light pointed out to me yesterday in a phone call, we're talking, he's like, that would be then 3 straight Texas games on game day because they're going to be at Texas, Georgia this week.
Yeah.
So that could be a deterrent, but hopefully that's the case. And I'm telling you, Texas is the best team in the SEC. They blew out Oklahoma. I think we know now that Oklahoma's not good, though.
Yes.
But I'm not ruling out Vanderbilt making that a game. I'm not ruling out Vanderbilt's offense against any team in this country. Vanderbilt's offense, and because you need Pavia to be full speed Pavia. But that offense against any defense in this country can move the ball and score points. And I'm not ruling them out for making that game interesting, which is wild.
It really is. And look, Clark Lee has done an outstanding job. I really worried about kind of their psyche heading into this are they enjoying the Alabama win a little bit too much? And Diego Pavia basically mocked that after the game, which was awesome. It was pretty good to see. And you look, that's a good Kentucky defense. And, they didn't light up the world offensively in this game, but they did run for 145 yards. Pavia made some big plays when he had to. And look, right now, I mean, his completion percentage is ridiculous over the last few weeks. They're doing a good job of scheming things up. He's delivering the football where it needs to go. I know he had the one pick on Saturday, but 15 of 18, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. 1 pick. Again, those are not numbers that's going to light the world on fire, but he's playing high-level football for Vanderbilt right now.
Yeah, he's one of the best players in college football. He really is. And yeah, I mean, even the pick, that was there. It was a great play by the I think the linebacker, maybe safety. to get up and elevate. But otherwise, I don't blame him for making that decision. He just needs to get a little bit more air under it.
And shout out to Mark Stoops after the game for talking about how, Vanderbilt's bought into NIL. And when we do that around here, we'll have a chance to compete. It's like, okay. Well,
that was fake.
Oh, was it?
That was fake. Yes.
I fell for it.
Oh, believe me. We talked about it yesterday. Because I actually would have written a column about just that. Like, dude, you are not serious. But yes,
I got duped.
I confirmed with Michelle Perry that was indeed not something he actually said. I mean, can you imagine him? Because he's already done that before, and people
I know
if he's then comparing to Vanderbilt resources.
They went and got the New Mexico State quarterback, and here we are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they didn't exactly break the bank for Pavia, but I do hope the banks are breaking all over Nashville. I'm going to continue every week. I'm going to be his unpaid agent. Give that kid money, appetizers, desserts, whatever, man. Give that kid the world.
Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com will be with us coming up next. We'll get his thoughts on the Titans falling to the Colts yesterday. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Road, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. Titans lose 20-17 to Indianapolis yesterday. They fall to 1-4 on the season. And to help us talk more about that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in Paul Kuharski from PaulKuharski.com. PK, good morning. How we doing?
I'm well, gentlemen. Thanks. How are we? How are you?
We're doing pretty well. Appreciate you taking time to be with us.
Great.
So, PK, Calvin Ridley, 8 targets, 0 catches for 0 yards yesterday. It's pretty difficult to pull that off in the course of a National Football League game. So, obviously, he was very upset after the game. We played the clip a little bit earlier on the show. Very upset with the lack of targets, particularly early in the football game. What do you make of this situation and just the inability of this team to get Calvin Ridley going in this offense?
Well, I don't understand why it's so hard. Teams add premier talents. I don't know if we'd call them a premier talent at this point. Teams add talent at wide receiver all the time, veteran talent. And it doesn't take them 5 games to figure it out. It's 9 catches and 27 targets now. I mean, that is a ridiculously bad rate. Will's still talking about figuring it out. Callahan's still talking about finding a way to call better plays while he's talking about the Colts' ability to get the ball in Josh Downs' hands in every way possible. So I just don't understand it. It's hard to conceive. You know, I was spending last week campaigning for them to get it to him early and often. It didn't happen early, but it did happen often. Not to get it to him part, but the attempting to get it to him part. And with everything going wrong, that they can't get it to the guy who should be their best weapon and is clearly their fastest weapon and their most dangerous guy with the ball in his hands is crazy. But he's got to catch it whenever it comes to him, obviously, whether it's early or late.
So, PK, I think, the central issue here, of course, is the offense. The passing game is basically non-existent. It's just another season of Titans fans having to watch unwatchable football, basically. So if we boil it down to 2 things right now, obviously Will Levis and then Brian Callahan and the offensive coaching staff. Where are you on, well, I guess divvying up that blame pie at this point?
Well, the one thing was the pass protection had been really bad, right? And the thinking was if they could fix the pass protection, everything would kind of fall in line. And pass protection was not an issue yesterday. They protected better. And we've said, they faced a lot of really good defensive fronts. And the Colts are not a really good defensive front, particularly with the guys that they had out. So the pass protection was not an issue. He did not get sacked, and he was not under a lot of pressure throughout the game. And things did not magically improve. There were all kinds of issues otherwise. I think player performance always ranks number 1 for me. Levis wasn't throwing the ball accurately, and guys weren't making plays for him. There wasn't a lot of separation, but the play calling's right there because they come out of a bye, and the first 3 passes called are behind the line of scrimmage against the 4th worst pass defense in the league. I don't know what is that? I mean, are you babying the quarterback? Do you have no faith in him, or is your offense a behind the line of scrimmage passing offense? It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why they're being that conservative. If you lost that much faith in Levis at this point, maybe you do have to go change because you're not doing what you said you were going to do, where you're going to give him every chance to prove himself and whatever. That would include throws all over the field, wouldn't it?
Well, you would think so. And added to that, PK, Levis got up there talking in the post-game press conference yesterday about, the interception, his shoulder didn't allow him to put what he needed to put on the ball. To which my response was, well, good Lord, if you're that concerned about the shoulder heading into the game, why were you playing? Like, if you can't make those throws down the field in the game, whoever decided that it was a good idea for him to play football yesterday it's really concerning to me. I was disgusted when I heard them get up there and started talking about the shoulder yesterday, as if that was some excuse.
Yeah, I mean, he only said it, or I took it as it only being about that one play, which was reasonably late in the game. So I'm hoping it was my medicine had worn off, and on that one play, it was a thing. If it was a broader thing, if it was the rationale for the 3 passes out of the gate being behind the line of scrimmage, then yeah, what are they doing? Then it makes zero sense to play him against the 4th worst pass defense in the league, where you have to dink and dunk your way. But I mean, back to Joe's point, I mean, they're just collectively lost, and the blame game just goes in circles. It's on everybody, and it's just terrible. And the idea that they're going to solve it against Buffalo or Detroit seems to me on the road seems crazy. So 1-6 is very, very possible. It's probable. And I don't know how people are going to swallow it around here. I had people in my pod last night swearing off the team, which is not what you do when your team goes south, but it's a really hard to watch team right now.
Right. And it has been, through various regimes now at this point. I mean, it's just for the fans, it's basically more of the same, just with a different packaging. So let's play that out, PK. 1-6. At that point, is to me, the NFL, things happen all the time that are more surprising than this team beating either of those teams, but I can't imagine it right now. Let's say they're 1-6. At that point, then I believe you're right up against the trading deadline. Are you selling off parts if you're the Titans? And who's your quarterback after that?
I mean, you have to sell off parts, right? I talked to Chad Brinker for this big analytics piece I did last week, and he said, they want 8, 10, 11 picks in a draft. Well, they haven't traded down in either of Rand Carthon's drafts. And what's the route to getting those picks? I mean, they're contenders for the number 1 pick in the draft now. I think people would want them to take a quarterback, though the quarterbacks don't look great. Trading down in that draft is one route to really bolstering your draft class. Though you'd probably need to trade up next year if you did any winning to get the quarterback you really wanted. But certainly trading DeAndre Hopkins, who seems to me to be a value guy for somebody like the Chiefs. I don't think Jeff Simmons, I don't know, I was talking to somebody last night who does think somebody could take on his contract. It's an awfully big contract for a guy who's at his level, which is not, super premier. It doesn't match up to the numbers. And then the other tradable parts, I think fans get too excited. You could turn around Ridley in a hurry, but who wants a guy that's caught 9 out of 27 passes right now? But yeah, I would sell what you could sell. You got to get draft picks. But it's an awkward position to be in after you just spent, millions and millions of dollars to replenish the roster, to be in a sell position.
PK, couple of snaps yesterday from L'Jarius Sneed that weren't great. Now, you're playing corner in the NFL, you're going to get beat at some point. But overall, what have you made of the way that he's played, and is there a concern with L'Jarius Sneed?
I like L'Jarius Sneed a lot. I think he's a really good player, and I think he's super competitive and super accountable. But it hasn't been, Denard Wilson called him this week the best corner in the NFL. He gave up a 3rd and a mile against Green Bay that helped sustain things for them. He gave up a 30-yard pass on the Jets' game-winning drive. Tyreek Hill got behind him a couple times that Huntley couldn't take advantage of, so that doesn't really count. But, if you're looking at the big picture. Then yesterday, commits a pass interference for 33 yards and gets beat on a jump ball by Pittman for a touchdown. I mean, that's a long list for a guy who is supposed to be the best cornerback in the league. So, I don't think he's performed as all of the Titans big money guys haven't performed to expectation. And if it was one of them, that'd be one thing. But when it's collectively all of them, and yesterday particularly he and Calvin Ridley, I mean, those are guys, the third and fourth largest cap hits on the team this year. They not only didn't help you win that game, they kind of helped ensure you lost it, which is what I wrote last night and retweeted this morning. That's a bad place to be in. I mean, that's worse than the Colts added like 2 guys in free agency and re-signed their guys. And I was amongst those that said, well, Colts didn't do enough. Well, it did enough to beat the Titans.
Yep, no doubt about that. Paul Kuharski with us here on the program. He'll be back with us on Wednesday morning from 8 to 9 o'clock. PaulKuharski.com is where you can check out his work. PK, great stuff as always, man. Thanks for taking time to be with us, and we'll talk to you on Wednesday.
Joe, you look kind of like that old Conan sketch in the year 2000 where he holds like a flashlight up to his face. Yeah, I don't know who's your lighting director this morning, but I expect some futuristic predictions.
It's just not on the beach this morning either. The aesthetic has changed a little bit with the Rexrode.
Yeah.
I feel like this lighting is accentuating my double chin a little bit too. It is bad lighting.
Once you get your lighting going, I look forward to gauging your sunburn.
Yes, there we go.
Oh, I stay out of that sun, baby.
PK, thank you, sir.
See you, boys.
All righty. Paul Kuharski with us on the program. He'll be back Wednesday morning to break down all things Tennessee Titans. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode up next. We'll have Cory Curtis at 8 o'clock. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
You know, obviously they made some plays. We had a hard time staying in front of them. At the end of the day, I'm just sick and tired of our guys getting smashed down there. Smashed! We'll get ready to play Tennessee. We were incredibly outmanned at the end. Had 3-4 guys on the bench in foul trouble. Joke!
It is that time of the day, time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. Joseph, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. In the year 2000, the Tennessee Titans will complete a pass of more than 11 yards. In the year 2000. I hope people get all Kuharski's reference there.
I got it.
I think, Letterman early 80s or, even into the late 80s, and then Conan, mid late 90s range, best late night talk show stuff ever. Conan's run was, I mean, before the whole thing with Tonight Show, pretty freaking awesome. All right, so today, Robby, I'd like to let you know that I have determined the absolute worst part of Vol Twitter.
Okay.
And I'm not talking about the dirtball bigots, and every fan base has some of that. Take the human pond scub out of the equation. I'm talking about the happies, okay? I'm talking about the sunshine blowers. I've determined they are the worst. Now, to be fair, Robby, you and I were on the same team as these. So we were arguing in concert with these folks just a few weeks ago because the unrealistic demand excellencers, they can also be unbearable, right? And when those goofballs were bitching about the win in Oklahoma because they wanted to blow out and they wanted Heupel to air it out all night, well, Robby and Joe and the Sunshine Blowers told them to calm the heck down. The defense was dominating. The QB got sacked twice, and you don't mess with that. You get out of there with a win. But my God, some of these people and the way they are clearly displacing their anger or have that absolutely no clue about what they're watching or both after a grotesque performance, such as what the Vols had Saturday against the Gators. I mean, in the midst of this thing, I shot off a tweet about how disappointing they've been. How disappointed they are, okay? And I got besieged with, among other things, a comparison to this win over Florida, this overtime home win over Florida, and the 1998 national championship team surprisingly close win against Syracuse, which was quarterbacked by Donovan McNabb and won on the road against Tom Brady and Michigan and played in the Orange Bowl. I mean, Florida, look, I'm going to borrow some of Jared Stillman's mastery of the English language right now, okay? Florida sucks. They suck. They suck. And your team couldn't score in the first half. It had to stage a roaring comeback in the second half and had to win in overtime. And that's embarrassing. You should be concerned about your team, not yelling at media people for stating the obvious. I know all is well. I hate your team. I love the team you hate. I have no integrity. I'm just looking for clicks. I might be a Russian double agent. That all must be it. It can't be that your team is not close to what it was supposed to be at this point.
It's concerning. Like the offense is bad. And it's multi-layered. Heupel got up there on Saturday and talked about, how they're not that far off and, that they're encouraged by at least they know they can get a lot better. But I do wonder, at what point are you just what you put on tape is what you are? I don't know. I'm not saying there's no chance for improvement moving forward. But, Joe, it is mid-October. The season doesn't have that long left. And it's been – and congratulations in the passing game. You've lit up Chattanooga and Kent State to this point. That's about it. Even in the NC State game, you ran the ball really well in that game. And that's another thing. They're not even running the ball great right now. They made some big plays running the football the other night, and Dylan Sampson's a really good player. But they're not running the ball to the same effectiveness that they had earlier in the year. The offense just feels like it's broken right now. And, it wasn't a complete dumpster fire on the offensive line the other night, although there were a couple of reps where Lance Hurd just looked horrible over at left tackle. I mean, he had some where he just looked like he was on skates. Every time Nico breaks the pocket, there's a holding penalty that gets called. So you got that you're dealing with too. And it just Saturday night was a pretty gigantic red flag to me in terms of this offense and what they are right now.
It's not good. And Hurd, he definitely the offensive line. And look, there are some consistent things. They're there is not a consistent thing with the passing game, because 2 years ago it was absolutely lethal. This was the best offense in college football. That was just 2 years ago. But we are in a second straight season now of just a really hard to watch at times offense that is struggling. I do wonder a little bit, Robby, if some of this is, I mean, I'm watching Ole Miss, and they still should have won at LSU the other night, but they end up not winning. Their offense is not anything close to what it's supposed to be. And I do wonder if there's a little bit of defenses having a little bit more answers against this scheme. But still, I mean, there are plays to be made, even with the bad protection. And right now, the young quarterback's not making them. So, I mean, this week, this is a vulnerable Alabama defense. Still talented for sure. There are some great players on that defense, but I mean, look at what they've done recently.
Yep.
And the Vanderbilt game is tough because it's just a different deal. It's a different kind of game. But South Carolina had success too. So this is, I mean, the offense has to show up in this game. And I don't have a ton of confidence right now. I mean, it's like they got to go back to the drawing board big time. And they've got to, I mean, Nico has got to be able to let it rip and make some plays. I just don't know how much confidence he has at this point.
Yep, and he's missing throws you can't miss. And I know the protection has been bad at times, but a couple of those the other night, Joe, he's got a clean pocket. Receivers are wide open, and he just sails it. Like you can't do that when you get good looks in this offense. You got to be able to hit on those passes. 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025, our phone number. Cory Curtis from News 2 will be with us coming up next. We'll get his thoughts on the Titans' loss to the Colts. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. And as we do every Monday morning at 8 o'clock, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in our friend Cory Curtis from News 2. Cory, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm delightful. How are you today?
Delightful as well. I appreciate you taking time to be with us. The Tennessee Titans, however, not delightful. 1-4 now on the season. They fall 20-17 yesterday to the Colts. And Cory, they mustered up 95 yards of passing offense yesterday against a team that the week prior gave up 370 to Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars. What do you make of just the futility that we saw for the Titans trying to throw the football yesterday?
Well, not just to Trevor Lawrence. The week before, they gave up over 300 to Justin Fields.
Yes.
Justin Fields. And I'm not here trying to defend Will Levis, but I will say the game plan is a game plan I've seen before. And it was the game plan Cincinnati came here with last year when the Titans beat them like 34-3. I mean, that barrage of short passes and screens was completely devoid of aggression and confidence. And I didn't understand it. You were protecting the quarterback. You were running the football. You were set up for play action. And they did not attack downfield or try to until they had to when they were down 20-17. And I didn't understand that. I said last night, you can't try to hide your quarterback in a game. If he's too hurt to make the throws you wanted to make, then he shouldn't play. And if you don't trust him to make the throws he needs to make, then he shouldn't play. Because that's what it looked like. I could be wrong, but they weren't facing Jalen Ramsey or Jair Alexander out there. They were facing a pass defense that's been shredded, and they looked afraid to attack it. That's my perspective, and that's not good enough. I understand taking what people give you. We're going to take what people give us. Sometimes you also have to dictate and take what you want, and you have to try. If you don't try, you're not going to take anything. And I felt it was void of trying. I mean, you had the 4th and 1 play action, I think it was a 1-man route to Burks and he was wide open. And there was play action to Nick on the touchdown and he was wide open. I didn't see a whole lot of aggression in that passing attack. And, you put some of it on the quarterback, I'm sure, but I just thought the game plan was just way too passive.
I think I agree in general, but I will say you and Kuharski now have both mentioned the screens. I mean, to me, those screens were directly setting up the fake screen and the NWI wide open TD. I mean, again, maybe I'm giving too much credit to Callahan, but like as soon as they hit that, I'm like, oh, that's perfect. They ran all these screens. They got the Colts thinking screen. 15 is certainly a blocker on a screen.
5 yards a throw.
Sure.
I mean,
I understand. I'm just saying, like, the only thing I liked.
Yards.
Right. I'm just saying the only thing I liked about the offense was the early screen stuff to set that up, which is what it was in my mind.
Sure.
Maybe I'm giving Callahan too much credit, but yes, I agree. The Colts are giving up yards in bunches, and they could have done more. I just don't know, though, Cory, are they capable? Is Levis capable? Are these receivers capable? I mean, like, it just the whole thing looks so dysfunctional right now.
It does. I think that's a good way to put it. And I often am criticized for being too hard on receivers. I don't know how many of those balls you thought Ridley needs to catch, but I think I saw at least 3 that I thought he needed to catch. Certainly the one over the middle.
Yes.
It's all got to be better, and at the same time, they lost by 3 points. And I know, like, it seems like all is lost, and it feels like all is lost, and it doesn't look right. And I'm sure the coaches feel like it doesn't look right. But they didn't get boat raced. The defense is keeping them in games, and still the defense had a chance to slam the door on that victory and couldn't do it. That's one of the other things in this whole thing. As good as the defense has been, they had a fourth quarter lead, and it's all frustrating. But no fourth quarter points again. That's frustrating as well. And a quarterback's, we talked about this with Tannehill. Quarterback's got to be able to elevate his team when his team needs him. And they didn't get that yesterday either.
Ridley, 8 targets yesterday, 0 catches, 0 yards. He's got 2 catches in the last 3 weeks. He sounded off in the media after the game yesterday. Clearly some frustration. Overall, Corey, he's got 9 catches on 27 targets this year, which is just an abysmal hit rate. There's blame to go around. Some of it's on the quarterback. Some of it's on him. I think some of it's on the coaching staff, but their inability to get him going so far this year has just been mystifying to me.
Yeah. No, I've got no answers. I've got no. I mean, you'd like to get him the ball earlier. I think. I mean, there's things they can do. You can rubs and picks, and we've seen him on some crossing stuff get open, and you'd like to see them get him in the flow early, for, what does he make, $24 million? And that, I'm not blaming him for that. I'm saying he was a priority to get on your roster. So he should be a priority to get the football. And I'm sure he's angry, upset, embarrassed, all of them. Because, he, like you said, he can do more, but part of having an aggressive game plan is getting the ball in your playmakers' hands. And, I like 2-yard outs to Josh Wiley and Chig. I do, but I like 15-yard passes to Calvin running as well.
So, Corey, if this goes the way we probably all think it will go, while all acknowledging the NFL can be wacky, you're talking about at Buffalo, at Detroit, 1-6.
Yeah, 1-6. Yeah.
Trading deadline right there. And also, again, I mean, if it's 1-6 and nothing significantly changes in quarterback performance, at that point, how are you looking at both potential sell-off and quarterback decision?
Well, I mean, you have to, you're right, see how it looks. I think 1-6 is one thing, how it looks is another. Because we've talked about giving your quarterback the best chance to succeed. In 2 more weeks, if you don't see anything where you look like there's a chance to succeed, like if somebody came to me today with a 3rd for Hopkins, I'd probably trade him. But I don't know that anybody's coming with that high of a draft choice. I don't know that I'm good with, selling off for 5s and 6s. But at 1-6, which certainly seems probable at this point, you have to consider who's a part of the future of your organization. You're not the decisions, Joe, I always make are what advances our organization towards the Super Bowl. All right. And so this season you wanted to analyze your quarterback and see if he could advance you towards the Super Bowl. And if you've made your decision at 1-6, this guy is not advancing us towards the Super Bowl, then you kind of pivot and you say, all right, what advances us towards the Super Bowl now? Is it getting, a 5th round pick, for DeAndre Hopkins? Is it getting, I don't know what other assets that they have. I mean, I guess, Tyler Boyd, but I don't see somebody, unloading something big for Tyler Boyd. The assets that you've got are, guys that are probably, you don't want to trade J.C. Latham or Jeffrey Simmons or Devondre Sweat. I mean, those are assets. But, so who can you deal that advances you towards the Super Bowl? That's the question. And then, do you get enough in return?
So, Corey, on the Levis front, I said it earlier in the show, I'm out. I'm out on Levis. I have no hope that he's going to be a franchise quarterback. But regardless of where you stand on that, the regression that we've seen from him this year is just really mystifying to me. I mean, it's looking more and more like the Atlanta game from last year and the Miami comeback are just total outliers when it comes to Will Levis. This was supposed to be, a coaching staff that comes in and fixes some of those things and highlights his strengths. So how do you explain just the massive drop off that we've seen in his performance?
It's a good question, and I feel like I understand what's happening. That doesn't mean it's going to work. You've got a guy who's a gunslinger, and you're trying to turn him into this surgeon. All right. And a lot of it is against his nature. And so does he look comfortable to you doing what he's doing? Okay. And so I think he is uncomfortable doing what he's doing right now. What he's doing right now does not look second nature to him. It looks mechanical. It looks thought out. It looks, like I'm doing it, I don't want to say for the first time, but just, it doesn't look like what looks like it's in his nature to do is drop back and chuck the football down the field. That's what his nature is, come hell or high water, whether it works or not. But that's when he's confident. And so, they're trying to rein it all in to get the best version of it. And they're in an in-between point, okay, where he's not comfortable and, unable to do things at their highest level because he's just not feeling great about everything that he's doing. He may say he is, and I could be just dead wrong. That's what it looks like to me. Now the question is, can he get to the other side where he is comfortable? It all speeds up. He still has the same swagger and moxie about him, making plays in this style. Maybe it doesn't fit him. Maybe it does. Maybe there isn't a style that's good enough to make him an upper echelon level quarterback in this league. Maybe not. But right now, fitting into this mold, is proving a little difficult for him. And you saw, like with Caleb Williams, he got into the NFL in the first few weeks are a struggle, but you're seeing him get more and more and more comfortable, and the results are coming. Will needs to get more and more comfortable with what they're doing. Now, you would think not getting sacked, and running for 150 yards, that would be steps towards him getting comfortable, what he's doing. But he's got to start having some success in the passing game to gain some confidence, because confidence speeds things up for you when you feel good about what you're doing and trust what you're doing. And I think there's not a whole lot of that right now.
Cory Curtis.
That's my guess. I could be dead wrong, but that's my guess.
It makes sense to me. Cory Curtis joins us every Monday morning at 8:00. Cory, great stuff as always. By the way, that NFC North wagons.
My goodness, it's a juggernaut. It is a flat out juggernaut. I tell you, watching the Bears was a joy yesterday. But Joe, I have to tell you, what the Lions did to the Cowboys was criminal. I mean, they clowned Jerry Jones on his birthday in his building. Clowned them. I mean, how many plays did they run for offensive linemen?
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, they did. They also lost their best defensive player, and they are now screwed. But yes,
I was going to get to that, and it is always a shame. It's one of the things about the NFL that's a shame is when you lose your best players, because it happens every year because it's a violent sport. I remember when he was drafted, people liked him, but I don't think people were over the moon about, was he the first or second pick?
I think he was number 2, wasn't he?
Yeah. I don't know that anybody saw him being the player that he is. I think people saw him being a good player. I don't know if people saw him being the elite level player that he is. He is special. He is fun to watch. He's a fun personality, and he's part of what makes that team go. Obviously our offense makes that team go, but he is a part of that. And Aiden Hutchinson being lost for the years, it's a loss for the league because he's worth watching on Sundays, and it'll be interesting to see how Dan Campbell and company overcome that.
No doubt about it. Cory, great stuff as always. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. Talk to you later.
Yes, sir. Cory Curtis from News 2, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Back into the Titans and the Colts and the Will Levis conversation coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Tomorrow, it's your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click. If you correctly guess a Preds player that scores a goal in the game tomorrow night, you win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. Participate with us tomorrow morning at 8:45. Rexrode out to an early lead in the competition, thanks to Paul Kuharski and his selection of Philip Forsberg in game number 1. So Kuharski has the lead in Preds Pick to Click. Joe Rexrode.
He finally makes himself useful for once. Job, PK.
Take your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Titans lose 20-17 to Indianapolis. Joe, I'm out on Will Levis. I was pretty close anyway. And then yesterday, you come out after the bye week. You've got an opportunity as a coaching staff, as Levis, to kind of evaluate the way things have gone to this point, make some adjustments, and quite frankly, take on a defense that's not very good. I mean, it's a bad defense against the run. It's a bad defense against the pass. I mean, we talked about, the Trevor Lawrence experience. It's not gone very well for Trevor Lawrence and that offense this year. Went pretty darn well against Indianapolis the week before, where he threw for 370 yards in that game. Justin Fields lit up the defense, throwing the football, as Cory Curtis highlighted in the last segment. And your production yesterday throwing the football was 95 yards, 3.5 yards per completion yesterday. It's just that's inexcusable production to me. And it says one of two things to me, Joe. Number one, that your quarterback, you just completely don't trust him, and that's not a good spot to be in as a head coach. Or he was too hurt to play yesterday, which is another conversation of how could that possibly be allowed to happen. If you knew heading into the game that you couldn't push the ball down the field because of his shoulder, then why in the world is he playing in that football game yesterday? We saw it with the Colts. Anthony Richardson went through practice last week. They clearly felt like he wasn't, completely healthy and ready to go. And they've got a good option with Joe Flacco behind him. And I didn't think Flacco did anything special yesterday, but he made some plays in the game and was obviously enough for them to win. I thought the interception that Will Levis threw yesterday was brutal, where you're just sitting there basically patting the ball in the pocket and staring down Calvin Ridley the whole time. I'm out on Will Levis. And, maybe this is the kiss of death that I throw out there sometimes, and he's going to turn around and look like an all-pro the rest of the year. I don't know. I just don't see it. I've lost I've lost total faith in him being a franchise quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. I'm out.
Yeah, save that, Keiser. Save this whole thing.
Yes.
We will be playing it in December and laughing at Robby, pointing fingers at him
as the Titans go to the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's there's just not much to like right now about what we're seeing. And look, you're right. It is a different discussion. I think that would probably be an appropriate follow-up line of questioning today. Kuharski, make yourself useful again. Ask some good questions for once. To Brian Callahan. I just, like, for example, the pick, and I know Levis talked about it after the game, like maybe he could throw it more on a line if he wasn't hurt. And it's like, geez, okay. Now, as Kuharski did say earlier on our show, he hopes it's like maybe it got worse because, meds wore off or something. But if you watch that play, Levis was way late throwing it. It was a bad case of, you allowed the safety to come all the way over because you looked, waited, patted, then threw. And yes, then it was too much of a lollipop, but that play was doomed because of your failure to use your eyes to manipulate the defense and to see something fast enough to throw someone open, as opposed to, oh, you're open, I'm going to throw it to you now.
Which continually is a problem with him.
Yeah. I mean, there's just not much right now with him that's very encouraging. And of course, the two things I always believe. One, again, like basically I'm going to bet against every quarterback to be a star, I'll always, that'll always be the way I'm hedging my bets. But also, I've seen too many cases of guys becoming different players at some point in their career to dismiss that as a possibility. It's hard for me to imagine this combination of Levis and Callahan and this offensive line and these receivers becoming anything competent this season. And that's to Corey's point, and I think Paul said it earlier too. I mean, the protection numbers, the pressure rate and all that stuff, it was the best performance of the season. He was under pressure a few times, and that affected him. And got some throws out early, but he got protected pretty well. And still, there's just nothing to show with this passing game. It's just a zero. So I have to put more of that on him than anything else. And I can't disagree with what you said. I mean, I guess I could join you. I would continue to start Will Levis. I would continue to get more information, give it a chance, hope something turns around, work with him. I mean, your whole season's supposed to be that. Your job, the reason you got this job is because you develop quarterbacks. So, to me, throwing that away now is what are you saying? What are we saying here then if you do that? But I'm not optimistic that it's going to significantly change.
Well, and how much of this too, like we've had a lot of conversation about Callahan today as well. Like it's not been a good start for him either. I mean, you got a receiver that you paid a ton of money to in the offseason that you can't get the football to. And you can blame that all on Levis if you want to. I think he certainly deserves most of it. But it's not all Levis as to why you can't get him the football. There are ways to get him the football early in the game that they're just not doing. He got 8 targets yesterday, most of which came in the fourth quarter, and he had 0 catches for 0 yards. Now, he dropped one. He probably could have come up with a couple other ones. So I'm not trying to absolve him of blame either when it comes to Ridley. But, I mean, that's been a problem since camp. They can't, for whatever reason, get Levis and Ridley on the same page. He's got 2 catches for 14 yards in his last 3 games. I mean, it's just a joke at this point of the year. So I think some of it is on the I hope there is a follow-up today in terms of Levis and his health and how limiting that was from a game plan perspective. Because if that wasn't it and that was the game plan yesterday for the Titans is to attack that defense the way they did, that's pretty poor from Brian Callahan. Pretty poor.
No question. There's a question that affected the text that I'd like to get to and one I'd like to scream at.
We'll do that coming up next. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Titans fall to 1-4, dropping the game 20-17 to Indianapolis yesterday. More of your thoughts coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, the game. Join Jared Stillman, Chris Sanders, and Derek Mason at Twin Peaks and Cool Springs this Sunday for the pregame show from 9:30 to 11:30. They'll break down the Titans' Week 7 matchup against the Bills, give you the latest updates before the game. The pregame show presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment, Sundeck Nashville, Sloan's Motorcycle ATV, and award-winning Blue Note Juke Joint and Blue Note Crossroads Bourbon. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership with a buzz is always about great service. Joe Rexrode, some thoughts that you wanted to get to on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
Well, I feel bad because we've mostly ignored the text line. This is one of those days, right?
It's hard to
like
keep
it's
up.
just hard to keep up with you guys. Appreciate all your interaction. Justin from Greenbrier. Well, asked a question we've been dealing with, but I mean, he says it this way: could the coaching staff be at fault for Levis's regression? Levis looks like a complete and total rookie out there, and not like a second-year player. So we have got into that. We will get into that. I did notice this from Ben from Cumberland City. How does Amy not at a minimum fire Chad Brinker? First of all, if you're a Titans fan and your owner fires anyone right now, you should be really concerned, more concerned than you were once you fired John Robinson in the middle of the season and once you fired Mike Vrabel at the end of last season. Now, again, you can talk yourself into these all being good ideas, but like if you can't commit to something and let people do their jobs for a while and see how it plays out, you have no chance in pro sports. You're screwed. So anyone talking about people getting fired right now, to me, is just like, I guess it's just, it goes back to the old thing of like, listen to the fans enough and you'll be sitting with them, an old Floydism. I mean, that's just, that should not, to me, just like I don't want to talk about the draft yet. I know we're probably going to get there way earlier than we want to, but like the talk of firing people in the front office of the coaching staff right now, to me, is just like, that would be ridiculous.
Definitely with the coaching staff. I mean, I will say, if this doesn't get a whole lot better, I'm not saying you absolutely fire a Brinker or a Carthon, but I mean, you are at that point under the new regime talking about 2 years that are just dreadful for 2 years. So again, I probably wouldn't do it. I'd give it a little bit more time. And I think her history, quite frankly, plays into probably why they shouldn't do this immediately when you're, reckless the way she's been firing John Robinson when she did. And whatever you think of the Vrabel move, although, that's the Vrabel move is becoming less and less popular with each passing week here with Titans fans. A lot of that yesterday on social media. So that's probably a good enough reason to not do it right there and to let it play out a little bit. I will say, though, like if it keeps on this track, that's a pretty poor return from the Brinker-Carthon combo in 2 years.
Yes. Now, I'm looking at their last draft, and it's early, but I'm liking Latham. I'm liking Sweat. I'm liking Brownlee. I mean, right now, that the most recent draft, and again, now this is where you get into, is it really their first draft because Vrabel's voice is not in there? Whatever. I mean, the last draft has to count on their record too. And right now, that obviously the Levis pick in particular, which is going to be the whole defining pick of that draft, looks very bad. But no, this last draft was pretty good. Now the last free agent period is not playing out as well as you'd hope. But I can't get there. I mean, I don't want to put too much on John Robinson because John Robinson overall had a good record and was in his first few years was fantastic. But his draft classes at the end of his tenure are still that's still coming to roost right now, right? I mean, like,
yes,
the terrible state of this roster still has a lot to do with those terrible draft classes and also decisions like trading A.J. Brown.
No doubt.
He came back and got a nice TD yesterday.
He did. Now, it also has to do, at the moment, and we'll see if it changes. I don't have confidence it'll change. Maybe some people do. It also has to do with the selection of the quarterback you took, which right now looks awful. And that's on Brinker and Carthon. And people can play the Vrabel game with that if they want to. He's gone. That's on Brinker and Carthon right now.
Yeah, now there's like Charles is,
or it's on Amy Adams.
How much did Amy push that? I don't know. I don't know. But ultimately that has to it has to go on the record of the people who were part of the front. I mean, look, Ryan Cowden had a voice then still, for the Titans. So I mean, but the bottom line is the people who were there, who were there and who are still here, that has to go on their record.
Did Ackerman's
but again, Ackerman. I mean, why not? Let's put it on him. I mean, it's all bad right now. Okay. But again, I do like the draft class. I do like the draft class. I think Latham is really rounding into form here. And, Brownlee, of course, looks like a really good pick late. So, I mean, you have to balance all the information together.
You do. I'll say this too, though. And I think there's still a lot more time for this part of it to play out. But they did go spend a lot of money this offseason. And right now, some of the return on some of those guys is not very good. I mean, Calvin Ridley's not working out right now. And you can blame that on the quarterback. Maybe it is just as simple as the quarterback's not good with that. L'Jarius Sneed has been okay. He's not been great, and you're paying him to be great. And you were the one that decided he was worth the 3rd round pick to go get him when nobody else did. So that's on you too. So there's still a lot. Those guys are demonstrated good players in the National Football League. So I'm willing to give that some more time to sit here and see what it looks like as the season goes on. But right now, some of the decisions you made in free agency are not having a very positive return for you.
For sure. That's totally fair. And the Ridley thing is really interesting too, because of course he had the year off from gambling. He goes to Jacksonville last year. It looks like that's a, big score for them. And it's a disappointing year. I mean, it's certainly a more productive year than what he's on pace for here, but it was disappointing. And in the end, he leaves. And in fact, I think Charles came on our show at one point and said a lot of people around the league were talking about how the Jags misused him. But then people in Jacksonville and Mike Duraco on talking about how he was not good and, with the playbook and all this stuff. Regardless, Nick Holtz was there with him there. He's here with him now. No one can figure out how to get the guy to catch a freaking pass in a game. So something there is really wrong.
Well, speaking of Ridley, we had the kind of the blow up in the media after the game yesterday. He had 8 targets, 0 catches, 0 yards, and Ridley was asked about that after the game yesterday. Here's what Calvin Ridley had to say.
I had targets in what part of the game I had targets?
4th quarter, a lot of them.
All right, then. So I need some in the beginning of the too. Then crazy for me. So I'm just, it is what it is. I suck today. I gotta be better. But I gotta get the ball a little early in the game so I can be in the game and here with the team so I can play well also.
So that was Calvin Ridley after the game yesterday. Obviously some frustration there. You're talking about 27 targets on the season, which to me is not enough. And you're talking about 9 catches on those 27 targets. You're catching the ball, 1/3 of the passes that come your way. That's, in terms of starting bona fide top of the line receivers, that has to be the worst percentage in the league. It would be difficult to find one worse than that. 27 targets and only 9 catches to show for it.
No, it's unbelievable. And Caleb sitting here saying putting any blame on Ridley is hilarious and lazy. Randy Moss, not Randy Moss, if he has QB. Levis sucks. That's not Ridley's fault. Yeah, no, I disagree. I disagree, Caleb. I mean, I'd put more of it on the other things, but again, I just mentioned what people were saying in Jacksonville, and you know how it goes. Someone leaves, and all of a sudden DeAndre Hopkins' work ethic crap. I mean, a lot of it is BS. But I'm watching Ridley, and I'm seeing his inability to sync up. Yeah, you go back to camp again. I think that whole I didn't run hard was just he didn't have the play right, and so he used that as an excuse. There's something that's also wrong with him. This is not purely 100% on everyone but Ridley.
Well, he's also allowed to catch the ball when it hits him in the hands. You are allowed to do that as a wide receiver, which he has not done on multiple occasions this year. Catch the football. When you are throwing the ball and it hits you directly in the hands, come down with it. That's what you're paid to do. Now, again, if I'm divvying up blame here, Levis is getting the lion's share of it, and I think a lot of it falls on the coaching staff too. But Ridley's got to play better than he's played. He is a part of this conversation here. And look, the frustration is going to continue to grow. I mean, the more losing they do here, if they get to 1-6, it's not going to be a very pleasant environment. And I do worry about that. Brian Callahan as a first-time head coach, trying to navigate that with a lot of veterans in the locker room. I'm interested to see how that goes. And again, I've talked about it with Levis. He's been awful to this point. I mean, there's no other way to put it. He's been terrible to this point. So I'm not trying to absolve Levis of blame in the Ridley discussion, but Ridley can help himself a little bit more than what he's shown to this point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he gets the least. He gets the smallest piece of the pie, but he doesn't get nothing. I mean, there's no way he gets nothing. Texter says, I've never put a lot of weight in Callahan's excited to work with Levis comments. He just got in the job. QB had the back in the front office. What else was he going to say? I'm going to disagree with you because, again, he emphatically said it over and over and went into depth about why he was excited. I think he genuinely thought this is Brian Callahan didn't have to take this job. Brian Callahan was going to get a head coaching job. Someone else asked about why don't they hire people who have experience. Well, the thing is, then people say, why are you hiring a retread GM who failed here or there? Why are you hiring a retread coach who just failed? You go to the Detroit Lions. GM first time, head coach first time. It can work. You go around the league. That's what.
Look, all the talk in the offseason before they made the decision on Callahan was go get the up and coming offensive guy. That's what it was.
Exactly, and they did. And I'm not here saying that clearly it's a failure. I mean, it's early, it's not good, but long way to go with that. But I disagree with you. I think that he thought he had a promising young quarterback, and I think that and as the season goes on, I mean, I don't think he's going to throw him under the bus, but I think it's going to get more coach speaky because if Levis keeps playing like this, everybody sees what's happening. And again, it doesn't absolve Callahan from blame. I'm not trying to do that. But the reality is he's out there on sidelines during game day. And at a lot of times I think being like, what just happened there? Well, how did you not see this? How are we talking about this during the week? And then on Sunday, it's, you're failing.
Oh.
I think that it's going to get more and more coach speaky because he's not going to throw him under the bus.
And then
he's clearly disappointed with him.
And then the question becomes, how long do you put up with it? Like, how long do you sit there and watch that? 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Final thoughts on the Titans' loss to the Colts coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Final segment of the day, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. Titans fall 20-17 to the Indianapolis Colts. They dropped to 1-4 on the season. And good news, Joe, they got Buffalo and Detroit coming up on the road. So look forward to that if you're a Titans fan. See how that goes. I believe Buffalo's a 9-point favorite as we sit here today. Now, the Bills play tonight on Monday Night Football, but I believe the Bills have opened up against the Titans as a 9-point favorite next week. So there you go, Joe.
Big line in the NFL.
As a big line.
Big line in the NFL.
In the NFL.
But seems appropriate.
It does.
Given this matchup.
Does seem appropriate. I just thought yesterday's result, Joe, and we've talked a lot about the quarterback today. You know, obviously that's the main part of it, but just the result in general, very disappointing. Like this is not a good Indianapolis Colts team. You know, Flacco has come in and he's done some good things, and certainly I think the Titans would have been better off had they played against Anthony Richardson yesterday. I didn't think Flacco did anything special in the game yesterday. The Colts have a defense that's just been run all over all year and really thrown all over all year too. And the Titans didn't do enough to take advantage of that. And here we are yet again, Joe, talking about going up against one of the worst defenses statistically in the NFL. And the offensive output for your team yesterday is 17 points, which when you're not – basically what we've learned about this Titans team is when you're not playing Tyler Huntley and the other team is just totally incapable of doing anything offensively, your 17 points is about where you're going to end up. And that's the case again yesterday for the Titans.
And again, it's like we're going to talk about, this QB and this coaching staff, this play calling head coach, this OC, which I think the OC and the play calling head coach situation probably gets almost less scrutiny than an OC should, but I think it's a very important position in this whole thing. It's why Brian Callahan got this job and other guys like him got jobs as non-play calling OCs, and it's all not working. But from the fan perspective, it's just whoever's in charge, you are being force-fed an awful product.
Yeah.
And that's just, I feel for Titans fans to be sitting here in mid-October with a 1-4 unwatchable football team again. And every question you could ask right now about all of it is fair because it's that bad.
Well, no doubt. And again, you're on the road the next 2 weeks. I will say, like when they come back home and they take on the Patriots, let's say it plays out the way we think it's going to, and they're 1-6. And they're coming back home taking on a bad Patriots team, I do wonder what the crowd looks like that day. And, we've talked all year long about, you've got a new stadium coming. You're trying to put your team and your franchise in a position where when that thing opens up, you're in a spot where you can be competing for a Super Bowl. And look, I know for some people, you're talking about that's 3 years away and a lot can change in the NFL between now and then. And I get all that, but I'm just saying, they're 1-6 and it doesn't change. And the product looks like what it's looked like for the entirety of the season up until this point. I think it's going to start to look rough around Nissan Stadium in terms of the fan interest level and just going to watch this football team play games and pay the money to do it.
No question. And of course they're trying to sell those PSLs at the new stadium. It's bad timing from a business perspective for this franchise because like, again, if you were bad and you were losing these games, but there was something to point to with your quarterback, that'd be different. Okay, this defense is a mess, but you got to fix this and this, or, whatever else it is. But you got the quarterback question right now. We're definitely trending toward that being a big thing. And the question being, is it a veteran signing or is it with the number 4 pick, who can they get? I mean, that's where we're headed. So that's very hard to sell people on that. Especially when, again, you made a somewhat controversial coaching move to get the QB whisperer and so far not working. Dennis says they want Levis to play a style, that doesn't suit him, that he's not good at. And I think that's fine, but you got to be able to do some of the stuff they're asking of him. Like you have to be able to take the short stuff and you're not. I mean, you're not going to have an offense that's like Kenny Stabler with the Raiders, where just throw it deep to Cliff Branch. I mean, you have to be able to spread the ball around the field. Yes, he's never going to be Joe Burrow, and that was never fair anyway. But they want to push the ball down the field. They have at times this season, but you have to be able to move the ball and have consistency as a passer and reader of the field.
Well, again, like I think for some people, there's this idea that they're just playing it super, super safe. And if that's what they're doing and it's still resulting in this many turnovers and just the consistency level of the turnovers, like, what does that tell you? Like, it's not like they're asking Will Levis to throw the ball, 55 yards down the field every play, and he's ended up arm punting the ball. Like, it's turnovers in every game. And again, like, some of them have been way worse than others. Like, the one yesterday was bad, but it's different than flipping the ball underhanded across the field. So we all understand that. Having said that, it would be nice to get through like one singular game without a turnover from your quarterback. That is possible in the National Football League. I know it doesn't feel like that right now, but it is possible to do that.
Yeah, and he tried to throw a pick in the first half too when he was under pressure, and he just kind of threw it up, and it's like he just dropped the pick. So, no, I mean you have to start there. You have to start there, and then you go from there with trying to figure out what's wrong. Weston Clearsville says, "Why do we need a play calling head coach, especially a head coach in his first year? He didn't call plays as an OC, but now he can be play caller and head coach. That's the model.
It's the NFL,
and it's worked for a lot of teams, and it's the head coach who was an OC who wasn't calling plays. Big success there, working with the quarterback. Now it's your chance to be both the head coach and the play caller. I mean, it's you can find it a lot of places around this league with success, but you cannot find success here at this point.
Nope, no doubt about that. Chase and Big Joe will have you covered on the Titans and the Colts coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3, The Game.